So our district case is CSUN, and we are the team from Miami University. Our members include Sarah Freeman, Hanan Guan, Adam Romenko, Eric Krantz, and then Darius Moss Jr.
So good afternoon, everyone.
For the district information, where we're studying is a Northwest neighborhood in Los Angeles that has a 356-acre campus, and they have a goal to be net carbon zero by 2040. So, and for the district, they want to have electrical vehicle charging and provide 2-hour outages, and then they're also not allowed to export power from the grid. So they also rathered rooftop penetration not be done because aesthetic is a big focus point for them. Then, move to the next slide.
So to begin, for our system design summary, we identified 14 buildings, 3 parking lot structures, and three parking lot structures and 1 surface structure. We avoided any roofs that were too small or their design was difficult to have solar arrays on them. Next. These first 5 buildings are our smallest producers, but because these buildings were mostly flat and had little infrastructure on the roof, we were able to use them. Next. These are our 5 middle producers. Some of these are a bit sporadic, but they fit enough solar panels on them to make a good dent in the production we were looking for. Next. And then here are 4 largest producers for rooftop buildings. Next. And then our 1 parking lot and our 3 parking structures. The parking lot will be done with awnings, similar to how the campus has already started to do other parking lots. And the parking structures, we are proposing that a rooftop awning be construction on these parking structures, which would allow for solar arrays to cover their entire surface, allowing for huge production. Next. Here we have a map of all of our buildings and on CSUN and the connection to the overall grid. The yellow blocks on the map show the areas we're proposing for battery placement. The batteries would have buried lines to each of these locations based off of closest proximity to battery location. Based off that information, we selected the amount of batteries wanted per location, as well as their capacity and power that those batteries would bring. Next. Here's examples of shading models we did to prove that most of our panel uses placements are producing a good amount of electricity without being shaded over by any infrastructure entries. Next. Now for our equipment selection, first we have the panel we selected. We selected a SunPower panel. They are a California-based manufacturer. We decided to use one of their monocrystalline panels because of their high efficiency and reliability compared to polycrystalline. They're also cheaper than the newer panel types that are coming out, which would allow for better cost savings when it came to the financial side. For our battery selection, we went with PowerSonic. They are a Nevada-based company, and they produce battery energy storage systems, or BESS, which are containerized modular battery producers that are all contained with fire suppression and other software and hardware to allow for the batteries to be efficient. The batteries they use in those are lithium ferrophosphate batteries, which are sustainable in high temperatures, which is good for the California heat, and they also last longer than normal lithium ion batteries. Next.
Okay, so moving into how we selected our inverter, we actually landed on two different options that we're presenting, but our primary selection would be the Huawei inverter here. Both the options we selected are three-phase string inverters with maximum power point tracking. So the string inverter, as opposed to the central inverter, has the advantage of less DC wiring, which makes shutdown in the case of emergency more safe and effective. And then the maximum power point tracking provides higher efficiencies for the sake of complex roof geometry. And so the Huawei inverter here, out of all the inverters we tested, gave us the best combination of production and cost. And it also had a really favorable DC to AC ratio of around 1.2. And then in the case of changes in the political landscape that would disallow Huawei, or if CSUN is looking for a North American producer, our secondary option is from Canadian Solar. It's a larger inverter compared to the Huawei, which can simplify the installation. And of our inverters tested, it had the second best combination of production and cost. And it had an even more exceptional DC to AC ratio of getting close to 1.1. And then next slide, please. So our expected operation. So as we mentioned earlier, our total system size is 9.2 megawatts, which is using our best optimization of the restricted area of campus that we had access to. So we think that this jump from 7% to 53% of CSUN's goal of 20 megawatts is a momentous step for their carbon neutral by 2040 plan. Next slide, please. So here's an example of the operation of our one of our largest producers, which is the parking structure B3. And so this is data from the REOP simulation software that we ran. And the dotted line at the top there is showing the battery charge level. The solid line, which you can see is over top of the red and blue, is showing the load, which is either being served by the battery, the PV array directly, or the grid. And then the orange there is charging of the battery from the PV when it exceeds the load, and the yellow is curtailment. Okay, so getting into our distribution system risks and mitigations. So as we mentioned earlier, LADWP does not allow currently power export to the grid. But we noted as a team that the US grid is continuing to modernize and that this policy could potentially change in the future. So we addressed the no export by keeping all of the PV wiring internal to our battery and PV array systems. But we did want to analyze for potential future tie-in in case that becomes allowed, it would be beneficial. So we conducted heat map analysis, and you can see just a high level overview in this table that even with a worst case scenario power factor of 0.8 from our inverters, if we tie in the correct locations, there will be plenty of PV hosting capacity for the network. Next slide, please. Okay, and so the reason heat map analysis is necessary is because of the potential risk that PV can pose to the grid. So that involves overloading, overvoltages, overheating, and harmonic distortion. Overloading and overvoltages is just when the PV array is exceeding the load or the nominal voltage of the system. Overheating would be exceeding the thermal constraints of the electronic equipment. And then harmonic distortion, you can see in the graphic on the left, is to do with the phase of what the PV system is putting out versus the grid. And so our mitigation strategies for these risks involve selecting tie-in locations that have plenty of PV hosting capacity, and then technologically using storage, which can store the load during maximum production and release it more steadily to put less of a load on the grid at a given time. And then our smart inverters can use both reactive and active power control to avoid voltage fluctuations on the grid. Next slide, please. And then back to this graphic of our battery locations. You can note with the numbers on the right there that tie in at any of these locations, even downstream with a worst case scenario power factor of 0.8 would still have be well within the PV hosting capacity of the system. Next slide, please.
So we have two financial options. The first option is the cash purchase. So the pros of this option is that it will require less cost and it will be faster for the investor to break even. However, these options will require a large upfront investment compared to the lease options. So for the lease options, on the customer side, the net present value savings will be higher than the cash purchase, and the annual savings will also be a little bit higher and potentially reach around 3 million by the last year cycle. However, this options has for the customer and the investment, they don't have any ownership to the system. They have like a significant higher total cost, and therefore like it will take a longer time to break even. Next slide, please. So I would like to correct a little bit on this slide. So the top left graph, our primary solution is the PV plus the storage with resilience option, cash purchase. So my apologies for this. So this is our primary solutions because like we have to correspond to the requirements of the district plan. So this will cause the investment return to around like net negative 20 millions. However, this hasn't taken account of the cost that can be saved due to the outage throughout the years. And also like we also have like 3 alternatives. We can do the PV only because like the productions of the PV is only around 17 to 20% of the whole campus demand. We can do either cash purchase or lease. If we can do the storage, we can do the PV storage without the resilience, which can help us to reduce the battery capacity and power requirements. Next slide, please. So this project aims to significantly reduce carbon emission and lower energy costs. To facilitate this transition, we initiate like several community engagement efforts, including workshop, digital outreach, and seminars. These are designed to keep everyone informed and involved. Additionally, to address any concerns for construction impact, we are implementing strategy like scheduling major work during off-peak hours, ensuring post-construction restorations. Our goal is to advance our energy objectives while maintaining a seamless campus environment. Next slide, please. So moving forward, we recognize the potential challenge such as permitting delays, construction issues. Our risk management plan is complex, involving detailed planning and collaborations with reliable suppliers. We also will keep a close eye on legislation's change to stay adaptable. Community involvement, like I said before, is a cornerstone of this project. By engaging with campus and local stakeholders early and often, we are building a supportive and informed community around this initiative. This engagement is essential for navigating potential challenge and securing the project's long-term success. Next slide, please.
We got the 2-minute warning, just as a heads up.
I got you. So our project rollout is methodological structure to align our sustainability and operational efficiency goals. We begin with pre-contract preparations, setting the stage for all stakeholders. Following this, our site assessment phase evaluates potential sites for structure, soil, and shading sustainability. The subsequent design and engineering phase ensure that our systems are optimized and compliant to local standards. Next slide, please. So here's our Gantt chart. Like you can see in the graph, like we separate into the 6 major components, like I said in the previous slide, and we will try to break down as small as possible. Next slide, please.
So we took a look into the sorry about that. So we took a look into the environmental impacts of solar development, and here we have a table with each of the pollutants that is commonly associated with regular energy production, and then their annual reduction in tons due to switching to solar. And then for land use, we have all of our PV arrays, which are rooftop, and then we wanted the storage for it to be on a minimal impact. And then for water conservation, thermal plants are usually water intensive, so we wanted to reduce our reliance on it, in which conserving more water resources, which is important for California and their climate periods. Next slide, please.
Okay, that actually is the end of our presentation period.